Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. I would love to not hear you. uh, so, awesome conversation over there. I have a personal story here, and I want to talk about why we have to fight aging. It is the degenerative disease that affects all of us, 100% of us, 100% of you. And how I'm also going to talk about how VitaDAO, the first DAO that funds real-world longevity research, can help the crusade against aging and death. So a personal story: I've been struggling with health problems since my earliest memories, and I was 3 years old when I was diagnosed with a rare disease, and I've been in hospitals over 10 times, hospitalized all over my childhood. So I know a thing or two about how important health is. And when I was barely a decade old, I had my grandmother in a hospital for a few years. She was struggling with health issues because of poor state of health that everyone experiences when they're old, and it was painful. It was only managed. The symptoms were managed with medicine, but that's pretty much it. And she was my idol. She was the kindest person that I've ever met. She was, I think, the only person that would truly get me. And yeah, I loved her the most, and she was dead. So I sort of sat there lying on the bed, and I remember just staring into the abyss. Just couldn't believe that I'm gonna be probably experiencing this with my parents. I'm gonna be lonely, and this is unacceptable. But you know, it's aging. It's only natural. It's part of life. It happens to all of us. So I put it out of my head, out of my mind. It's a obvious sort of psychological coping mechanism that everyone experiences. The first time you hear about this idea of people just getting old and dying. So still, just because something is natural doesn't mean it's good. Cholera is natural, and cancer is natural, and so on. But we can, instead of saying, oh, if we're gonna cure aging, we're gonna have overpopulation. Well, it's like saying, London is full of people. It was exploding in population size, and it was full of manure on the streets. It was very stinky. And instead of saying, well, let's bring back cholera, let's mix back the water in the wells and with the water in the sewage, no, we actually use technology, we improve, and we clean up the streets and find other solutions. So the same with everything else that nature has thrown at us. We have gone out and checked each one off the list, and that is what technology is about. So why wouldn't we be able to go on to aging to do the same? So if you think about antibiotics, if we would choose to not give antibiotics, it would seem so barbaric, right? Like people used to gather on their child's deathbed, just watching them being consumed by bacterial disease. Well, I think looking back, like life expectancy has been increasing exponentially. But up to a point, and only mostly because of antibiotics, immunization, sanitization, and things like that, we haven't really been able to deal with chronic disease the same way. But I think looking back to today, in the future, we will think at this age of no anti-aging therapies the same way. It was barbaric watching these beautiful, amazing, wise, kind people that contributed so much to society being rotting away from the inside by this by aging. So what is the best way to die? What do you prefer? How would you like to die? Go ahead. Before 67. But would you'd like to be like healthy and then boom, just drop dead, right? Um, yeah, of course, painless, ideally, and involuntary, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to, like, it's always going to be somewhere in the future, maybe 80, maybe 100. Some people have like 120 as, 122 is like the longest lived person. But truth is, statistically, a third of us are going to die of heart disease, a third of us of cancer, and the rest of us are going to choose some other goodies of other degenerative diseases. All of the degenerative diseases that are associated with age are exponentially going up in statistically. So most people over 65 have at least 2 of these diseases. There's no such thing as dying of natural causes. And all of us are going to suffer from bone loss, from sarcopenia, muscle weakness, and all other problems that come with age. How about curing cancer? If we cured cancer, that's one of them, right? So how long do you think we would extend the healthy lifespan in humans? Anyone else? Yeah, 2 or 3 years on average. So because you would get one of the other things would get you, and so you'll still be in a poor state of health for longer. And this is economically unsustainable. This is the main reason, I guess, like if you're a rationalist, we have to tackle this in a different way, rather than keeping people in a poor state of health for longer by managing symptoms, but rather addressing the root cause. Because we will be, if historical rates continue, just in the US, we'll be spending 34% of the GDP on healthcare for people over 65. We're already spending trillions on this. 34% for healthcare in general, and we're already spending trillions on people over 65. And people are spending 80% of the lifetime healthcare costs in the last year of life, if you can call it that. And I don't know if that's the best idea. Maybe there's a better thing to do with that money and those resources. This, of course, causes short-term thinking. So what does medicine usually want to do is extend the healthy part of life, extend health span. But I think there is a better way. Instead of trying to mess with the metabolism, which is very complex, this is just a small piece. Can't even fit it on a fucking slide. It's very complicated. Gerontologists have been researching this, of course, with not that much funding, but it's not been a success, if I have to say, in terms of actually impacting these chronic diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and diabetes, and so on. But there are some promising approaches that are kind of better, I would say. One of them, the damage repair approach, spearheaded by Aubrey de Grey and the Sense Research Foundation, and many startup companies, some that are spun out, like Repair Bio and Underdog Pharma. Then there's this more recent approach with the cellular partial reprogramming, a lot of hype there with Calico, the Google founders, billions into it. Altos Labs also like 3 billion from, including from Jeff Bezos and another billionaire. Turn Bio, which actually, shout out, we've invested into with money from VitaDAO, $1 million into that, and Shift Bio and many other cool startups. And then there's this very interesting approach of for example, brain tissue replacement, and it's spearheaded by Jean Hebert at Einstein College of Medicine. And then there's a lesser known paradigm, I would say, with the continuous hormonal rebalancing and many other things. And we're always looking for new hypotheses. If you want to look into this more, I recommend the Hallmarks of Aging paper. It's not a bad start, and then go from there. It also, you can look into these, maybe later, look at the slides. There's 40 interventions that can expand mouse lifespan. And I can go into the VitaDAO a bit, just a quick overview and how it's uniquely positioned sort of outside the system and what we can hope for in the future. So our core premise, drugs that target aging are the future of medicine. Just like crypto is the future of finance, yeah? And I say this incredible alignment between the key opinion leaders like Balaji and Vitalik Buterin and Jed McCaleb and Brian Armstrong and so on from the crypto community. Incredible sort of alignment with this new paradigm with longevity, this new way of doing medicine. And I think it makes sense. Both of the approaches have been sort of dismissed by the incumbents, and you have a lot of it just unites sort of the most forward-thinking scientifically with the most forward-thinking economically. And of course, you have a lot of newly minted, young, high net worth individuals that are interested in impact, driving society forward, and thinking outside the box. So we are a decentralized collective. We are incubating and funding longevity research projects before their startup. We are democratizing, therefore, this not only the advancement of rejuvenation biotech, but also participation in this. And our mission, we're mission-oriented to extend the human health span and lifespan, healthy lifespan, obviously, by advancing these geoscience therapeutics towards market. So we're DAO, we can scale, we have network effects, we can scale exponentially faster than regular VCs. Anyone can contribute. Much more interesting models. Definitely an experiment, but worth trying out. So definitely different than the paradigm of what happens usually in biopharma, treating symptoms, right, instead of the cause of all these chronic diseases, which is aging itself. Also a big deal with IP ownership. We've discussed about that quite a little bit at this conference. It's stuck in the 20th century. Let's bring it digital. Let's bring it in the 21st century. It used to be liquid and difficult to transfer and a very long horizon to exit. We can change that with IP NFTs. I'll go into a master plan on like how we're starting with the baby steps, iterative within the existing system, but then with new models in the medium term and then longer term, just something that actually, if you think about it, is something that you would come up from scratch instead of having to play within the current archaic patent system. Yeah, the other problem, of course, public and patients don't really have any real ownership and control over what happens with intellectual property. There's this translational gap, this valley of death. There's a lot of valuable IP that's not investable, that's sitting in on the university shelves, collecting dust because there is no startup spun out. It's not investable by traditional VCs. Of course, government grants, probably don't need to tell you much about that, how boring and bureaucratic it is to apply for a grant. Most academics, PIs, principal investigators, the best researchers are spending most of their time on writing grants instead of actually high-level thinking and directing research. It's also slow, of course. The funds can come in up to 2 years, and risk-averse. I think there is only a small percentage of the NIH budget given to the NIA, and then like 80% of that is only for Alzheimer's, the National Institute for Alzheimer's, basically, instead of the National Institute for Aging. And then there's like only 2 to 5%, I think, that is actually given to biology of aging in terms of basic research, and maybe some translational, but I don't remember if it's so. And there's also like probably more money given to, I think, societal aspects of how to make the elderly feel more included or something, but still dying. I went into this a little bit. Yeah, aging has been slowed or reversed in lab animals by over 40 pharmaceutical interventions. Sebastian Brunemeyer went into some of these slides a little bit in his talk yesterday, so definitely recommend going into that. So yeah, we're gonna fund and incubate the best aging research we can find at universities and in biotech companies, maybe assets that are sitting on their shelves where the investors are not funding, it's not their lead asset, ideally, and it's just sitting there collecting dust. So we can fund that specific asset, hold it on chain, therefore enabling liquidity and fractionalization. And we then leverage our decentralized community, big community, with a lot of experts, domain experts, biotech entrepreneurs, highly motivated, mission-aligned people to develop those assets and de-risk them for further investments by VCs. It's easy application, a few pages, and we have quick funding decisions, move really fast. And then we have the circular model. As an organization, we also want to have sustainability. We can't just give all the money away, so we only have a few sort of philanthropic grants, but mostly we want to fund research that has a potential for building IP, have upside in that IP, whether that be licenses or royalties or different types of contracts, and reinvest those proceeds in further advancement of research and growing our treasury and so on. We've been busy. We've been not even a year old, I think. It's about 10 or 11 months. And we've actually sourced a lot of projects. We've funded over 10 projects. We have 5,000 plus community members and many, I think this is outdated, probably over 1,000 token holders. And our ticket size between, we've had even low as 30K, but even as high as $1 million, deployed about 2.5. And here's a quick overview of the featured projects. Some projects we're proud of, and many more to be. Just stay tuned. You'll see on the website a list of all the projects very soon. Also, we've had some nonprofit initiatives, which I'm very proud of, with like a longevity prize that can maybe spark some new ideas and some new hypotheses that are lesser followed in the current dogma, and a fellowship with micro grants for people to get into the longevity industry, and then we've spearheaded this Gitcoin round with quadratic funding, where we've donated some money, and Vitalik Buterin has donated some money, and a few other top sort of KOLs in crypto. So about 110,000 actually people die every day of aging, and millions more that are suffering in that poor state of health, and that comes about at a life per second. Each second that we're here, one person dies of aging. So I don't see a goal that is even close to that is worth working on. Are we talking here about immortality, that we're gonna just have something that is gonna keep people healthy for 1,000 years? Well, no. Maybe there's this concept of longevity escape velocity. Even if, well, at least what we can do is have a better grasp on these diseases and extend health span. But maybe we can have in a few decades some therapeutics that give us another decade or two of healthy lifespan, and then in that decade we have more advancement, more focus on this approach, and we get more, and then there's this idea of longevity escape velocity. And how much impact we have might make difference in whether you are going to make it to into that chasm. And I gotta say, I sort of was this child prodigy. I think people were kind of putting this pressure on me, and I thought I gotta be successful, and I went and tried to do startups and be successful or something. I don't know what I had to prove, but finally, when I had some financial freedom and time to think and meditate, I really started to leave all of that bullshit aside and get back, even though it was scary. Leave that psychological coping mechanism and really think about this, that yes, we can work on aging, and no, we can't wait for the industry to do it. We have to help. And well, I initially thought, well, it's biology, it might not be, I just gotta go back to school and learn, and it might be boring. And so initially I thought, well, this seems feasible, but then I also realized it's fun. and it's a project that if you work on, then you can work on so many more projects. So I invite you all to come downstairs, join VitaDAO if you're online, of course, but come downstairs to continue the conversation. We're going to have a workshop, try to falsify your assumptions and to why longevity might not be a good idea. We're going to have these prompts and hope to see many of you downstairs and think through this and the scientific method. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurence. Whoever wants to learn more about VitaDAO, you can follow Laurence downstairs for another little workshop. And we have another presentation here by Sava. He's just going to set up. And I want to remind everyone to come back up here at 6 p.m. for the final send-off and goodbye of the DeSci.Berlin conference, or gathering.